Okay, so I first want to preface this video by saying that when I use the word astrology, so astrology means the study of the planets and stars, and when I say astrology, I do not mean the study of planets and stars entirely, of course. I mean basically the modern American internet, the current sort of obsession with astrology, which is based in horoscopes and signs and birth times, and essentially the culture that is using language like, if you're a Virgo, you do this, if you're a Scorpio, you do this, if you're a Gemini, you're like this, and but hey, like your Venus like saves your sun, and so all this conversation that's happening. So it's like the memes, the many internet and publication forums that you can get your horoscope or your forecast for a whole year or for a day. So it's the horoscope-based astrology. So the idea that the planets and stars that were in place during our birth are in conjunction with the story of our whole lives, which sounds beautiful, doesn't it? But so I am not shaming the study of planets and stars, because of course we should be studying that forever. That's amazing. But in terms of the modern American, Western, whatever, the current, my community, the internet community, is really indulging this right now, and that is what I will be addressing, so know that. So first, let's start from the beginning. I was always into astrology since I was a kid. I think I always knew that what my sign was and that my birthday mattered, and it especially got heightened in my teens and early 20s when I was dating people and looked up our compatibility and started getting to the point where I knew everybody's sign immediately just by their birthday because I was so into it. And then, of course, later on, I think when I was like 22 or something, people started talking about birth charts. And so basically what happened was, when I only knew my sun sign, I was really into it, and then later it just started not making sense anymore and I fell off the horoscope train. Then the horoscope train pulled me back in with birth charts, because all of a sudden they were like, oh, well, the reason that this part of being a Virgo didn't work for you was because of your Scorpio Venus and your Sagittarius rising and all those things. And so then I was like, oh wait, okay, like I love astrology, I'm back. And so I got really into it. I was into it for years. I've had professional readings from astrologers. I've read my horoscope on every single app and website. I have made astrology memes. I have made astrology starter packs. I made a series a couple years ago that said for every single sign I made a starter pack of what it's like to date them. Like, that is how into it I was. And I mean, those starter packs did so well, and astrology meme pages do so well. I was addicted to those for a while too. And so just know that I was fully there, and I get it. It was really lovely, and I got to a point close to my end in my breakup with astrology where I was looking at my horoscope every day. I was looking at my friends' horoscopes. If I was dating someone or even just crushing on somebody, I would look at their horoscope and figure out, make a sense of what was going on, and it got really exhausting, and it got to a point where I started noticing what it was actually doing to my life and my brain, and also to my relationships, and to the way I was getting to know people, or the way they were trying to get to know me. My community, weirdly, when I stopped being into astrology, I feel like I found more friends that aren't into it, but when I was really into it, everyone around me was into it, and it was as if we were all living based on this code. And I think a lot of people watching this can probably relate to it, because it's very popular, especially in Los Angeles and certain cities. It's a huge industry. It's major. So let's get into it. So the reason I stopped was because, if you follow me, you know that my whole mantra is I'm constantly shape-shifting, adapting, and evolving. And basically what this means, that whole mantra started from a very kind of like simpler place of just living as a woman and being very annoyed with all the contradictions that exist in being a woman, being seen as a woman, and all the things that you can and can't do and can't be, and you sort of have to when you're young, you are almost told that you have to make this decision if you're going to be like a steadfast, like cunning career woman, or, a motherly, like picks up the baby, plays with the baby, has babies, cooks. That was still, even in our like modern society, like it's still very there. And so I grew up thinking that there was all these personality traits that you had to choose and commit to, and I was starting to get annoyed with what this was doing to my conversation with myself, where it's like if I was acting a certain way, I'd be like, oh wait, I guess I'm not one of those girls, like I guess I'm not one of those girls, and da-da-da-da, and then it just got so repetitive that I was like, well, I guess I'm just not anything. I'm just a person who changes all the time and is different all the time and tries new things and gets turned off by other things. And it was revolutionary for me because so much of my time was spent wondering who I was and what archetype I was supporting that I thought I had or that I had last year. And it was exhausting, and I was fucking over it. Everything is designed for us to just say that we have a personality and this is what it is. And I am now at a point in my life where I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think that we are full of every condition. We can be an angry person, we can be a loving person, we can be a distant, isolated, cold person, we can be all of everything in the whole fucking ever. We can be that in our lifetime or even within a day, and that's just the truth. So when I started committing to this idea of like I'm constantly shape-shifting and I'm constantly learning about myself as I get into new situations, and these new situations show me new sides of myself, and different things are brought out of me in different situations with different people, I just got really committed to it. And it was, to me, it's not only an act of self-love and a way to live that does two things. It's loving because it allows you to be yourself and see yourself instead of creating these systems. You know, it's like you pick one way that you are, and if you stray from it, or if you don't, you know, if it's a bad thing and you don't do it, or if it's a good thing, or if it's a good thing and you're not doing it, and then if it's like a bad thing and you are doing it, it's like this conversation. Like we make up this system in our head of what our personality is and what we have to be and what we have to stick to, and then we punish ourselves if we don't do it. And so it relieves that tension. It allows you to just sort of observe yourself and live life and come to actual conclusions about who you are. But the other thing it does is, but also on a bigger community scale, it's important because there is a big part of the human experience that is pretty troubling, which is that humans are so judgmental and so obsessed with answers and judgment that we are so focused on saying that a certain person, and people we don't know, like entire religions, entire communities, entire races, entire gender identities they're either right or wrong because of something we've been told or something we were raised with. And so I believe that the shape-shifting mantra or the belief is just something that could really serve everyone, in the sense that everyone has the ability to be anything, and that if we keep pushing this narrative that only comforts, you know, our very small primal mind, you know, the idea that there's only two gender identities when there's multiple, or the idea that certain races have certain qualities and every single person has that quality. Like, these are all things that are just so not true and so not serving for anyone, especially the people who are in those bodies that are being judged. So the more that we push this thing of like, everything is constantly shape-shifting, we are constantly evolving, this is a truth, and the more open we can be to just observing instead of just being like, this is wrong because I was told something different, the better off we'll be, the quicker we'll evolve, the more we'll learn, the better experiences we'll have, because we're letting people be themselves, and by letting people be themselves, we are really seeing the world for what it is, and able to go from there. So it is not only a personal thing, it's just like a worldly thing that I really, really stand by and I really love, and I think should catch on. So yeah, let people be who they are. And so, with that being said, it sort of goes into the idea of, on a smaller scale, and a smaller scale to me is personality quizzes, astrology, horoscopes, birth charts. All those things are systems that they're not obviously as evil or as detrimental as, you know, the social issues that make people die. But they are exercising a part of the brain that just loves to have answers and judgment for where there's no answers. So for me, one of the biggest things for astrology was that it did not fit into my new belief system, because by listening to current astrology theories and everything, it's basically says that, you know, you get this one birth chart and sets your whole life and this is who you are, and you know, you can learn about your friend through their birth chart, not from like, you know, and for me it's like, if you're going to learn about somebody, you got to meet their family, you got to hear about their childhood, you got to hear about what they've been through, you got to spend time with them in a bad time and a good time, you have to spend time with them when they're sick and when they're healthy. Like, that's how you get to know people. And so I'll get into how that's part of why I hate astrology too, but it's like, it was basically just another system that I felt was making my brain make connections that didn't exist, or desperately trying to find answers that didn't exist. And the truth is, yeah, I'm not going to be able to know somebody with a chart. I'm not going to be able to know someone with their birthday, and I do not get the luxury of cutting my time short by thinking that I do, and, you know, then living life in this narrow perception, and then not getting to know somebody or getting to know myself. So, narrow perception. So first off, the first major thing, of course, is that we all know that if you focus on something or believe something, it shows up. So something as simple as, for example, my dog Lua, I found her, and she's a Korean Jindo dog. She's white, she has like little pointy ears. She's a Jindo, which is a dog breed I had never heard of and never seen, but after I got her, I started seeing Jindos everywhere. I was like, oh look, that's a Jindo, like there's a Jindo, but the truth is, they were always there. I just started seeing them because now I have a correlation or a reason to like look for it, and an emotional reason to be like, oh my god, a dog like my dog. So there's a name for that. I forgot what it's called, but someone sent it to me, but we know, we could look it up. But there's a scientific term for when you are so focused on something or a certain result that you start seeing it, not because it's fully there, but because you're indulging the part of the experience that it's there. So first off, when you commit to a sign or a series of signs in your birth chart and you think this is the way you are, or even that the way your friends are, you're always going to look for that in them. So for example, like if I, you know, associate with being a Virgo so much, and Virgos are meant to be motivated and career driven and so organized, I'll probably think of myself that way even when I'm not being that way. And so, you know, when I make a to-do list, I'll be like, oh, I'm such a Virgo, or like, you know, when my room's clean, I'm such a Virgo. And then when it's not, and when I, you know, have laundry on my bed for 3 days and sleep on it, or don't make to-do lists and don't organize my life as well, I probably won't see this, you know. Or, you know, somebody with my birth chart will come in and be like, oh, well, it's actually your rising is responsible for this behavior. And I hate that, because that doesn't provide growth and it doesn't provide change. And instead of me looking at those situations and being like, well, I was really organized and on my shit this day or this week, was it because of my menstrual cycle? Was it because of maybe a person I was hanging out with that was really energetic and giving me some of their energy? Was it food I was eating? Was I eating better? Was I sleeping better? Like, these are the real questions that you should be asking yourself about life. And so, and not even on a health level or an energy level, but with relationships and how you react to certain things, it's such a cop-out to blame it on your sign when there is so much truth to be found in your childhood, or what you watched your parents go through, or certain traumas you've had. That's where the real juice is, unfortunately. So for me, I think it's just distracting. I think it's extremely distracting from growth and change. And it will keep you looking for certain patterns that you've been told are there, and you're going to see those patterns, but there's so much more about you also, and so that really bugged me. Another thing I want to say is that I do believe that the planets and the stars do have effect on us, but in the moon especially, in real time. So right now, whatever's going on, I absolutely believe it's having an effect, but I don't think it's having an effect in relation to my birth date. Because I'm sure you've all heard that famous fight against astrology, where I've used it too. I remember I had a babysitting job, and her husband was this like scientist, and he was like, astrology's not real, like you're wasting your time. And I was like, well, if the moon controls the ocean tides, and the ocean is all water, and then we're 90% water. And also, it's just trippy as hell that the moon controls the ocean. I mean, come on. then how the hell can astrology not be true? And he had nothing to say, of course. And I was like, that's the best argument in the world. But it's not the best argument in the world, because the ocean does not have a sign. The ocean does not have a birth time and birth date that we can mark. And the ocean doesn't have a fucking horoscope. So what that tells me is, like, yes, we are being affected in real time, of course, by our environment, by the sun, by everything. This is all hitting us, you know, in the moment. But it doesn't matter when we were born in relation to those things. All that matters is the present time. Another major obvious thing. And then so I'm getting riled up. But so what happens in real time matters. And then the way that you respond to it is not because of your birth time. It's because of your life experience and your environment and the society you live in. So let's say something's happening. The full moon brings higher energy and a more intense energy level, and people are a little, you know, whatever that moon means, or whatever they're saying a full moon means. Maybe the high energy will make me work out, and it will make somebody else commit a crime. You know what I mean? But that's not defined by your birth chart. It's defined by your parents and your childhood and your current mental state and all the things that are happening on this earth.
I do not believe in astrology.
So I just walked Lua and hung out with Zoe, and I'm back, and in this segment I'm going to talk about more sort of surface level annoying things. And I think astrology is a conversation killer. I think it's like a really weird way to have a conversation about nothing. For example, a few months ago, I was talking to someone who had a similar work situation as I did, where they had to be very self-motivated, and I was telling them about my troubles with self-motivation and having a studio in my house, and how some days I wake up and it's like, you know, wake up early, drink caffeine, like get to work, and then that's when I produce amazing stuff. And then other days that just burns me out super early and I don't make anything. Then some days I go in, you know, just all the different ways that I've woken up and gone to work, and how different it is, and I still don't have a system that I know that works. And I was talking about that, and the person literally, all they said to me was like, oh, that's, like, this is someone I was getting to know. Like, they were like in my house or hanging out, and they were like, oh, that's the Virgo in you. They're like, that's so Virgo. Like, I know you're not into astrology, that's like so Virgo. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And so what I'm saying is, like, that could have been a sick conversation. Like, they could have shared their experiences with work ethic. They could have shared, you know, what works for them, and then I could have heard that opinion. And so I've been in a few situations where I'm talking about something, and then someone just brings astrology into it as like this like reasoning for what's going on, and it just doesn't help at all. I don't get anything from you telling me I'm a Virgo. I don't get anything from you looking at my birth chart and saying like, oh, this is why you're like this. I don't get a damn thing from that. And I also don't believe that I'm like that permanently. I believe that habits can be formed and things can be changed, and that the second I'm influenced in that specific way that makes me change, I will. So I really hate that. I think astrology is a conversation killer. Another thing is astrology memes really killed it for me. I think those were the most nonsensical noise ever. After I stopped attaching myself to my sign, whenever I see astrology memes, I read them no matter what the sign is, and about 90% of the time I relate to exactly what the meme is saying. It's literally just a formula, but it's amazing how many of the comments are like, oh my god, this is so me, like, I'm just such a Scorpio, it's so crazy. And then, so when you're just out of that mindset of like attaching to your sign and not reading the other ones, or reading the other ones and attaching them to the friends that you think have them, you just literally realize that you are literally everything, and then sort of seeing these memes is just nonsense. It's just noise, and it's actually very annoying. Another questionable phenomenon is twins. I have a friend who's a twin, and the two twins couldn't be any more different. They live opposite lives. They have completely different personalities. I've been with them in the same room. They live completely different lives, have completely different values, and completely different energies. Like I said, I was in the same room with both of them at a couple dinners, and it's just so apparent. So twins, same exact birth time, everything, completely different lives. So that was a big one for me. My friend was like, yeah, I don't really believe in astrology because of my twin. And I was like, I've never even thought of that, because, you know, there's not many twins out there to tell you that. So twins, another, like, no. I think astrology is a way to avoid accountability, especially for more toxic people that use it for that reason. You know, I don't want to confront someone with someone and have something or an issue, an argument we have, and have them say, oh, it's my, you know, Scorpio Venus, it's this and that, you should understand that about me. No, it should be, hey, that's actually not a good personality trait, temporary personality trait that I am exercising. It's probably because my dad treated me that way, or I had some, you know, bad experiences in relationships, and now I'm sort of acting from that place, but this is something that I can change because I am, you know, although I have a lot of conditioning and programming, I can step out of it, and I see that I hurt you. You know, doesn't that sound better? So that is another thing, too. Another thing is with dating, for example. It just comes down to being fixed and being limited. That's really what it all comes down to. Like, all of this can be summed up in, like, why the hell do you want to be fixed? Why the hell do you want to be limited? When you're fixed and limited, when you decide you're a certain way forever, that your life is predestined, then it just cuts off a whole world of possibility, and I refuse to do that. So I have a story. One of my closest friends dated somebody for a couple years that was extremely, I could say an asshole or toxic, but they were just very not emotionally intelligent. They hadn't processed any of the childhood, teenage bullshit that they needed to in any healthy way at all. There was just so much going on that manifested in this guy treating my friend extremely poorly, really neglectful, cheaty behavior, lying behavior, insecure, you know, backhanded, just everything that you don't want in a relationship. So she had that with this guy. She meets another guy who has the exact same birthday as guy number one, which is pretty trippy. They also come over. But the exact same birthday, right? She met him around the time that we were both rejecting astrology, and that was a good thing because this new guy is the complete opposite of the old guy. This new guy has amazing communication skills, is not afraid of getting older, is so committed to my friend and so lovely to my friend and so honest. Like, literally they're ideal. Like, I'm so happy to just watch these two people right now. But same birthday. And here's the thing, is that if you are someone who's really into astrology and birthdays, and to the point that I would have met guy number two and been like, oh god, same birthday as this other guy, like, not gonna happen because they're the same person. No. And so if my friend was, you know, a big astrology head, she would have missed a wonderful relationship with someone who has the exact same birthday as her really unsavory ex. So that's just like a really, you know, surface level dating example of how, like, it's like, don't cut your blessings because of some made up thing. Another thing I found deeply redundant was that astrology, literally every forecast is the same. Like, even some of the top astrologers that I really respected and felt that were, like, really politically correct and wonderful, it was like, okay, so every month we're reflecting and changing. Like, it was just the same themes. And here's the thing about reflecting and changing, is that it's happening 24/7 every minute of every day. So when you read a forecast that says you're going through a deep period of rest and reflection, it's like, when are you not reflecting? Like, when are you not tired at some point in the day and just need to think about every fucking thing you just witnessed that day, no matter how simple? And so it was just, to me, it's just so fake? I don't know, like, it's just to see how many times that an astrologer will tell you that you're going to reflect and that you're going to change, and it's like, the nature of the universe is like change and reflection. Like, there's never been a time in my life where I'm not going through an intense change somewhere in my life. So no matter what, you know, your forecast says, hey, like, you're going through a deep period of change, and it's like, okay, so, you know, even if it could zero in on relationships, you're going through a deep series of changes in your relationships, and it's like, these could be romantic relationships, it could be a relationship with your dog, it could be a relationship with your roommates, your friends, your coworkers, and you're going to find at least one factor in your life that has changed, because it's always like that. Like, life is not chill. Like, life is always like, something's going on, and we get through it, we're so amazing and adaptive, but there's always something going on. So basically every single astrology forecast is like, something's going on, It's like, I think we know that, and I think we have to carry out our lives knowing that every second we are changing, and there's so much like stimulation in life that's always going to be jarring, and like understanding that beyond a horoscope level, beyond a website telling you that that's what's happening at this particular time is just way more serving. Like, to go through life knowing that like changing and adapting is uncomfortable, and that reflecting is just a daily thing, and manifesting is a daily thing. It's not reserved for certain moons and planets and days and whatever. Just go for it. I think astrology is a great tool for introspection. I think it's an opportunity to reflect. It is, but it comes at a cost of having to adopt this whole template for yourself that may or may not be true. And even if it's not true, you're going to think it's true because you've decided that it's true, and then you're just in this illusion, right? So what it really comes down to for me, with all of this, with everything being said, what it really comes down to is just not being fixed, not indulging any practices that say that I'm fixed, and not looking at other people like they're fixed. I don't want to have conversations where someone thinks that they know who I am without knowing a damn thing about me. And I don't want to think about that about other people because I lose so much of the actual experience. And I don't believe astrology's goal is to do this. I think that there's a lot of merits in astrology, and I think it is just another vessel for trying to answer a lot of universe's questions. But unfortunately, the mainstream perception and the surface level perception has ruined it and made it a fairly toxic and annoying thing. And it's just too bad. So, yeah, that is where I'm at, and if you got through this whole video, I'm very proud of you because it's not cut well, and it's made on my 2012 MacBook, and it was simply just, I think I was getting so many messages about this topic, and it wasn't really something, I think this is the best medium to say my response, because I can just talk and rant as I would in person. And so that was the purpose of this video. Yeah, and I just want to say as well, I do not believe in shaming anybody. This video isn't meant to shame, although there are moments I know of me like having an outburst and being like, it's stupid. But that's just because of my own frustrations with believing in something so long that now is just really irrelevant to me. It makes me feel like I wasted time and perception points. I feel like some of my relationships would have been much, much better without it. So in conclusion, I am in a place in my life where I refuse to indulge any systems that encourage me to scale things, label things, compartmentalize things, that make me feel like I have a template for how the world works or how people work, because it's ever changing and we don't have the answers, and life is unpredictable, and I would rather be so aware of those truths than trying to run away from them. And I have found so much more in life from listening and observing than I have from indulging all these systems that promise a quick relief of existential tension. Thank you for watching, and if you would like to discuss in the comments or share how you feel, what has been your experience with astrology, if you believe that it does serve you to feel fixed and feel like you have a template for living, or not, and I would love to hear it, because nothing is certain. Although this is my strong personal opinion for my life, I don't think that I have the answers at all, and I would just love to hear everyone's experience, everyone's interpretation. Please lay it on me.